Yeah, okay. So my dad is watching Judge Judy in the other room, so if you hear some very Jewish sounding yelling, it's actually not my parents fighting. Please do not call the cops. So today I wanted to talk about something that's news to nobody, but has really intrigued me over the past couple months, especially because, like, I personally am really into true crime. Not in this way, but in like a purely educational way. Like, I read a lot of true crime books. I've been binge watching documentaries left and right. So I knew that this was a thing a while back, predominantly on Tumblr. I did not know it was on Twitter until very recently, and I had to know everything. So, if you don't know, the true crime community is basically a group of people, mostly like late teens to early 20s, I've noticed, who have found some sort of connection with these mostly serial killers, sometimes school shooters. Oh, by the way, this video is gonna talk about like that stuff, so if you're not comfortable with that, it's fine. I'll see you the next time, probably in like a year. I did not know what I was getting myself into when I decided to go deep diving into this. So yeah, predominantly these younger people who have connected in some way with these people. And I think that's really interesting. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, look at this is bad, because everyone's already said that. I really want to find out, like, why this, like, why not like Doctor Who? So I did make a fake account to like kind of get into this community and like talk to people and figure out what's going on, and it was really interesting. A lot of stuff I kind of wasn't expecting to see, but I sure did see it. Blatant racism and anti-Semitism, which really shouldn't surprise me, because a lot of these people were like white supremacists or neo-Nazis or just flat out racist. And of course, what you'll see on like every true crime community, be it Tumblr or Twitter or whatever, just, romanticization and glorification of these people. But there also seems to be like a disconnect. And I don't know if it's like to do with, something psychological. Again, I don't want to assume anything, but there's definitely something that's, it's not right. So I did bookmark a few things. What this is gonna be, this video, is I spent about a month on this side of Twitter. I bookmarked like a bunch of tweets that I thought were just shocking and interesting. I also talked to a few people under the guise of like writing a blog, defending the community. So first I'm going to go over some stuff that I bookmarked and kind of walk through that. Then I'm going to move on to like the private messages that I had with these people. Alright, so the first thing, I'm actually gonna go back chronologically, because so I started getting into this and like doing my research, I guess, in like mid-April, and I wanted to stick around until April 20th, which is the Columbine day and also Hitler's birthday, which I didn't think was going to come into play, and then it did. Yes, okay, this account is something that I think is really interesting. It's CCC polls, so True Crime Community polls. Let's see, it has about 160 followers. The Twitter community isn't huge, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this isn't a minority of the community that is like voting on these polls and following this account. So I think that it's generally a good representation, if a subset, of the population of this community. So yeah, this first poll says, would you kill someone if technology was like the 70s and serial killing was made more possible? And 70% said yes, which furthers my belief that I had going into this, that there is a disconnect when it comes to the idea of death. And that's something that I'll get into later. It's interesting to see that, because now it's not just an admiration of these people, but it's wanting to like emulate what they did, which is concerning. This one says, do you wish you could have been killed by your fave? 55% said yes. Again, just leading me to think that there's a disconnect when it comes to death and not really fully understanding. This one is about the anti-Semitism on this side of Twitter, which is really fun. So the options were, are you really anti-Semitic, are you trolling, or are you neither? 42% said neither, which I find interesting. There was a lot, maybe it was just from the accounts that I was following. I was only following about 50 of these people, but like I would see more of them pop up in my feed if like someone liked the tweet or whatever. But I did see a fair deal of like really bad anti-Semitism, like glorification of Hitler and celebration of Hitler. And I honestly think here that you can group really anti-Semites and trolling into the same category, because I mean, you can't like jokingly be racist or jokingly be anti-Semitic. Like if you have it in you to make those jokes and like be trolling it, like that's still anti-Semitism. So if we do that, then we're at 57, almost 58% there, which puts it at almost 50-50, which seems more accurate to me. This was a trend that was going on for a couple days that I think I bookmarked a few of these. It's like a personality poll. What kind of criminal do you think I'd be based off my personality? And I mean, school shooter, mass murderer, serial killer, cult leader. It's disturbing to see, and it's disturbing to see people like wanting to know these results and wanting to know, like, they're treating it with the same weight as like, what Hogwarts house do you think I would be in? But it's hard to fathom, and it's hard to know like when they're serious, and there's more of that I will get into. This was concerning. Someone threatening to actually commit murder. So the original tweet says, what if I went next door right now and killed my neighbors? Someone replied saying, how would you kill them? And they said, hammer. And then they quoted their own tweet and said, I could wait till the night before I'm taken back to mom's house, or I could do it soon and film it. One person says, my biggest dream is to eat well-seasoned human meat, which I want to say is a joke, but at this point, I can't be sure. Okay, yeah, more from the polls account. This one says, could you romantically be with a person knowing they had killed or sexually assaulted someone? 49% said yes, and 37% said it depends, with only 13% saying no. Which, I mean, all of this is just granting us insight into kind of, which is what I want to get into later, like how people end up here and what kind of mental state you have to be in to be like this and to think like this. Because obviously this is not the majority of people, and it's not even the majority of true crime people. It's this specific subset. It is interesting to think about how, because a lot of them say, oh, I'm just here because I'm into true crime. I'm just here because I'm into true crime. Which, no. Because there are people like me, I mean, I'm into true crime and I find this repulsive. So it's not, what I'm trying to figure out is how you go from just being interested in true crime to this, because it's a jump, but is it a far one, is what I'm trying to figure out. Another poll says, have you ever planned a school shooting? 22% said yes, and 39, almost 40% said no, but I've thought about it. So, okay, there's a confessions account with one of the curious cat things. I never really figured that out, but I guess it's where you post anonymously, and then this account tweets out your confessions. And it says, Lex just said she masturbates to Ted's crime scene / victims' corpses pics. What the fuck? Are we going to ignore that? Yikes. And another one, oh yeah, there's also transphobia, which I guess I shouldn't be surprised about, because it just, again, more bigotry. But so apparently there are trans people in the community. Please drop your @ so that I can unfollow you just in case. There's just a lot of hatred festering here, and a lot of it is self-hatred, which is sad. And I don't want to say I feel bad for these people, but I mean, again, after talking with some of them, which I'll get into in a minute, there's a lot of self-hatred, and there's a lot of depression, and there's a lot of anger issues, which is upsetting, but it's also dangerous, especially when you pair it with this obsession with these people, these murderers. You know, I don't want these people to end up doing something like this, because again, I don't know their lives, and I don't know, you know, what's going on with them, if they're joking or not. But just from what I gathered from talking to them and from seeing what they tweet, it is concerning. I'll continue that in a second. Okay, this tweet says, for Satan's sake, I wish Ted had touched me like this and then raped and tortured me. Which, again, just not understanding at all the gravity of these crimes and people that have endured this or lost their lives to people like this, and I don't know, it's a disconnect. It's just more of that same disconnect. Oh, fuck, okay. So now we're at April 20th. This tweet, I guess they deleted it, and it says, happy birthday to Hitler, and the original video was a girl singing happy birthday to a picture of Hitler, and she had made cupcakes with swastikas on them, and it was all just a lot. I don't know if there's a correlation between anti-Semites and these true crime lovers, or if there just happens to be true crime lovers who are also anti-Semites, but I do have a feeling there is a correlation. Alright, so another one about one of these confessions posted on the Columbine day says, can you guys please stop posting about the victims? Literally nobody fucking cares about them. They died for a reason, I'm assuming that says. I have nothing to say about that. It speaks for itself. Here's someone making a school shooting joke on the Columbine day. Another person saying, am I the only one who absolutely haven't any empathy for Ted's victims? I'm sorry, but that's how it is. And then someone else replied, I don't feel guilt or empathy for them. To be honest, I condone his actions. I just don't understand how people get here. I really don't. And I know I keep saying that, but it baffles me. This can be what your brain tells you to obsess over. I like the same way that other people, you know, you like a certain band or you like a certain TV show. For these people, it's this. And I can't fathom why to a full extent. I mean, again, after talking with them, I did get some insight, but I can never really know. This is a video someone posted about, I'm assuming, a school shooting, saying watching videos like this gives me an adrenaline rush, which just no empathy. I mean, I'm not gonna show it, obviously, but there's footage here of people lying dead in blood. In fact, there's people in the replies making fun of the people that were screaming at seeing their dead, I'm assuming classmates. It looks like a school to me, I don't know. I just don't seem to comprehend, which is confusing to me because a lot of these people do know a lot of facts about the people that they base their accounts around. I saw a couple threads that were very informational about, you know, there was one on Richard Ramirez, there was one on the Columbine shooters, that if they had been on any other account, I could have mistaken them for just someone talking about what these people did. So, I mean, maybe it's like an emotional disconnect that's going on here, of just dehumanization, or I don't know, because they're not stupid. They know what they're talking about, kind of. Which makes me then wonder how you can be unable to comprehend a tragedy like this, and violence and murder and just terrible, terrible things like this. If you're that informed on the people that you choose to obsess over and idolize, I mean, I guess that's what leads to the disconnect, but I mean, I can never say. It's just, here's another example of anti-Semitism, offering every Jewish person I know hand sanitizer so they do the hand thing. If you know, you know, it's anti-Semitic. Here's a weird thing. Someone saying, since my old account with the threat of victims got suspended, here are some of my favorite pictures of Rachel. These are pictures of Rachel Scott, who was one of the victims of the Columbine shooting. This is a Columbine fan account. So this is one that has really just baffled me and kept me up, because how can you have or claim to have this sympathy and this love for this person who was killed at such a young age, but then also have a fan account dedicated to the people that did this to her? It doesn't make sense to me. I've been trying to understand it. I can't. It would be one thing if these really were just purely informational accounts dedicated to informing people about true crime, and then also having that empathy for the victims and having that humanity. But it's clearly not, because it's a fan account. They tweet jokes and endearing posts about the Columbine shooters all the time. So I don't understand where this fits in their mentality. Here's one that says, damn, I can't believe that in my country there have never been any school shootings. This gives me envy to be the first one. I mean, again, seeing it as some sort of achievement, some kind of claim to greatness, I don't know. This person is underage, this person is 17. Again, I'm saying it's predominantly later teens or young adults. I remember seeing someone on here who I think was like 26 or 25. Also, this person's display name contains the N-word, and if I'm remembering right, I'm about 80% sure this person is not black. I did see a lot of that I forgot to bookmark, but It's just white people on here saying the N-word, saying it left and right and left and right. You know, going through my bookmarks right now, I'm not seeing a lot of the stuff that I remember I did bookmark. And it's probably because a lot of these accounts do get suspended. Although I rarely see talk of this on what I know of mainstream Twitter, I guess, you know, word of it is spread enough that people are reporting these accounts, which please do, because I mean, that's why I'm leaving the ats up, is so you can go do that, because it's disgusting. But yeah, some of these accounts do get suspended, which is good, but also I forgot to screenshot this stuff before they did, because I didn't realize that they were gonna get suspended. I remember one of my interviews got like removed because the person who I interviewed, their account got suspended shortly after, so I lost the conversation. But now we're going to get into the people that I talked to. So I mostly asked them what first drew you to the TCC. Again, just kind of trying to figure out how people get wrapped up in this. What do you think is a common misconception people have about the TCC? I want to know what they think we're wrong about. And the last one that I would ask them was, why blank? Normally this was whoever they had their account dedicated to, you know, who they ran a fan page for. Again, trying to get a sense of the connection that they have to these people. The first person that I talked to was a Richard Ramirez fan account in response to what first drew you to the TCC. They said that they were initially drawn in at the age of 14 and really troubled. They related a lot to Eric and Dylan, so they introduced me to others. Another person in response to this question said, I was drawn to true crime because my mom grew up watching true crime documentaries and shows when I was a kid, and I began to be fascinated by the stories shown in the programs. The darkest side of human nature was cast in the light, something that people in their regular day-to-day lives ignore or don't seem to give much credence to. It aroused my interest as much from a psychological standpoint as it did from an empathetic and compassionate standpoint for those who went into the darkness and took down others with them. So this person in particular, for one, gives an example of being very articulate. Again, these aren't dumb people. For a second thing, this is an example of something that I saw repeatedly of sympathy for these people, which, don't take this the wrong way, I can kind of understand. It is sad to see these people that were just so troubled that they were led to do these terrible things. Again, it's not an excuse at all, which I think is where these people have been misled. But I can understand having sympathy for those who were just very psychologically troubled, which doesn't account for everyone that the true crime community seems to be fans of, but it does account for some of them. That I can understand, but it does seem like this person kind of went off the rails a little bit. But that shows an understanding emotionally to some extent, which I think is interesting. Another person in response to this first question said, true crime is super interesting. I watch shows about crimes on Investigation Discovery. I think I found out about the community through Tumblr and it was an accident. I thought it was really cool to find people who are interested in true crime and willing to talk about without making it weird. To this I said, what do you mean by making it weird? Because I thought that was kind of funny. Because this is weird. This person said, some people get really uncomfortable with true crime topics, and instead of discussing the crime, they focus on how horrible the perpetrator was, which is fine, but I wanted to talk about their motives, the way they did it, and how they were caught or got away with it. So again, this looks like someone who was genuinely interested in true crime. You know, a lot of this stuff, like motives and how they were caught, that's stuff that I study. You know, I watch docs on that all the time. I can read all the books in the world. So it's just another example of how I think all these people are stemming from similar places as those who didn't become part of this community but are interested in true crime. So yeah, I know, that's just something. All right, so the second question, what do you think is a common misconception people have about the TCC? One person said that two big misconceptions were that we don't care about the victims and that we think our faves wouldn't have killed us, which is interesting. I hadn't heard that before. Before this point, I hadn't heard much talk about, I guess, the delusion that some people have that their faves wouldn't have killed them. I don't really know what to make of that. That's something to unpack. Another person in response to this said, people think we're just doing this for brownie points to be unusual, but there's a lot of us who aren't. We are genuinely interested and also might have developed some feelings, sexual or not, along the way. I didn't want to push them on that because, you know, this whole time I'm trying to keep this cover of like someone who's a part of this community, so I have to act like I understand, but I really wanted to follow up on that. I didn't though. Now a third person said in response to this question, that a misconception is that we're dangerous or deranged. That's just not the case. Some people joke about that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, no one's really going to replicate what someone like Jeffrey Dahmer did or what the Columbine shooters did. And if anyone in the TCC community ever does it, it's because it was on them the whole time. No need to blame the entire community of it. It's like blaming video games or violence on TV. I agree with some of this. I don't think it's the fault of the community if one or more of these people does turn violent, because I think a lot of it does have to do with like psychology and, you know, what led them to this in their own lives that the community can't account for in some cases. But I disagree with this person's saying at the end of the day no one's going to replicate what someone like Jeffrey Dahmer did or what the Columbine shooters did, because copycats happen. They do happen. It's not uncommon at all for, you know, a case like these to gain mass publicity and for copycats to start happening. There were a couple Zodiac copycats. So while I don't think you can make that generalization, I think it's interesting that this person seems to have this faith in their community that, you know, oh, everyone's joking. I don't know about that. So for the last question where I asked why whoever they dedicated their account to, here are the responses that I got. One from a Dahmer fan who said, "His case is the most interesting to me and I think he deserves so much love because he didn't really get that." Again, seeing some empathy for, I mean, Dahmer had a very troubled upbringing. It could be that, it could be the fact that he got the death penalty. I don't know. So another person said, and this person's account was dedicated to Richard Ramirez. They said, "Because I feel so strongly connected to him as a person and I have a great amount of empathy for him." So again, there's that empathy. It's a recurring theme, so that's worth mentioning. And yeah, the other case in which I asked someone that question was the person whose account got suspended, but I remember they were the Columbine account, and they said that they felt connected to the depression that the Columbine shooters suffered from, just again with tying back to this psychological aspect to all this. I think that's it. Yeah, I think everything else that I bookmarked was from accounts that got suspended or was deleted. I thought this was very interesting, and it's something that I've wanted to share with you for a while now, because it's been about a month since I started diving into all this, and thought it was about time I did something with it. I will promptly be deleting this account that I made to do this deep dive because it disgusts me to look at. Let me know what you think of this, if there's anything you've uncovered either from your time in one of these communities or if you did a deep dive of your own. I know a few people have done it. I've seen it around. Hey, I hope everyone's doing okay right now. I know it's a really hard time. It's really stressful for everybody. Just hang in there, guys, and maybe I'll make more videos during this time. Maybe my neighbor's kids will stop screaming. Who's to say? This was something that I wanted to do for a while as someone with a great interest in true crime, because this subset of the community is so disturbing and fascinating to me. So, yeah, if you have anything to add, please let me know. I would love to talk about this with you. The only thing I will ask, I know that I left the ats of these people up. If you're gonna do anything, just report their accounts. Like, don't hound them, because I mean, as disgusting as some of this content may be, you never know what's going on in someone's head. And I don't want, especially if there is some mental health stuff, psychological stuff going on with these people, as some of this has suggested, I don't want to be responsible for anything that furthers that. So yeah, please just report their accounts. There's no use engaging with them. That's all I have to say, I think. I'm now going to go back inside because it's time to feed my dog.